Dean Burton is the customer success lead at WP Buffs. He supports the team in making and keeping happy clients and partners. He focuses every day on making sure clients have everything that they need in order to succeed working with the WP Buffs team. Today, he's talking about the steps any MRR business can take to gradually reduce their churn rate. So let's get started.
Hi everybody. Thank you, Ali, for that great introduction. As Ali mentioned, my name is Dean. I am a customer success lead at WP Buffs. What that means is that I spend a lot of my time reviewing churn data and numbers and working in strategy to reduce our churn within the company. And this is kind of what I want to talk to you about today. WP Buffs is a WordPress maintenance company. So we maintain websites on behalf of agencies and freelancers in the WordPress space, but we also maintain websites on behalf of direct customers, for direct customers. So yeah, I spend a lot of time working to reduce our churn, and I want to share with you some strategies, some tips, some actions that you can take into your own business to kind of begin to look at reducing your own churn. So we're going to look at accepting and reducing churn in MRR so that we can basically have more end of year office scenes like this and less sad moments, because we've been able to reduce our churn, and so we should celebrate this. Before I go into sharing some of this information, I want to look at what churn is and how that's calculated, and also what MRR kind of stands for. By the way, the tips that I'm going to share and the strategies and the areas of business that I'm going to be looking at, they're going to be useful for your MRR business, regardless of what service you're kind of providing. So if you are a care plan subscription service, if you are a developer who has clients on a retainer, if you are a plugin developer and you provide support on a subscription basis, we're going to be covering tips and actions that you can really take into those businesses regardless of the service. So these should really apply to you if you have an MRR business model or you're working in an MRR business model, regardless of the service that you're providing. So before I go on to look at those, MRR is monthly recurring revenue. So a lot of you will know this, but for those who don't, monthly recurring revenue is the amount of revenue you're making every month from the service that you're selling. And we shorten that to MRR. So MRR is monthly recurring revenue. Churn is calculated on its most basic level is customers leaving your service divided by the amount of customers that you started with for really any given time period. So let's say you're measuring churn on a 30-day period, which is quite common. You can also measure churn on a quarterly basis, but let's say you're measuring churn on a monthly basis. You will take your customers leaving your service during that 30-day period or the month period, and you'll divide that by the number of customers that you started with. That will give you your basic churn number. And if you're just starting out with churn, and kind of looking at these numbers, then that will give you a good starting point, a starting reference to see where your churn is kind of at. So I wanted to also just touch on why people might aim for a 0% churn rate, and why that's kind of unrealistic and not very useful. Some people will choose to aim for a 0% churn rate because, okay, I've got to admit, 0% churn rate would be amazing, of course. Nobody's ever leaving your service. But the reason why I'm kind of touching on this 0% churn is because that's pretty unrealistic. People who are aiming for a 0% churn rate might just not really want to see any churn in their company, which is fair enough. But they might think that this number is the number to aim for if they're just starting out in their MRR business. The description of this talk includes a sentence that reads, achieving a 0% churn rate in your MRR business is the dream, but in all cases, it's not reality. So, okay, in very, very, very few cases is a 0% churn rate a reality, is what I want to say. Okay, there might be a business out there that has a 0% churn rate, but in most businesses will have some level of churn in their business. And that's okay. And in fact, it's actually more than okay. It's quite good to have some level of churn. What you want to do is bring that down to a level that is acceptable and makes sense to you as a business and in terms of where your business is and what stage you're at. Some level of churn is really good. So yeah, I mean, aiming for a 0% churn rate is just not actually as useful for scaling your business as a 3, 4, 5% churn rate might be. And by running towards a 0% churn rate, you're really going to be missing a lot of important steps to tightening up in your business and increasing your MRR. So as you start to work in strategies to reduce your churn, you're really going to be tightening up areas of the business that basically increase your MRR and also reduce your churn rate, whilst not really unrealistically working towards a 0% churn rate. So yeah, this means that you have work to do in your MRR business. It means that for some reason people are leaving your service, assuming you don't have a 0% churn rate. But yeah, it gives you that really important feedback to be able to go in and say, okay, I can tighten up here, I can tighten here. And these areas to tighten are the areas that I'm really going to look at with you now. And to really kind of talk you through step by step how we can start to break this down and areas to look at to be able to get to an acceptable churn level. So what I really want to say first is just let's accept churn is here to stay. There's going to be some level of churn in your company. That is a good thing. We're going to run with it. We're going to learn from it, and we're just going to put some actionable steps in place to be able to work towards an acceptable level. So as I said, these steps that I'm going to share with you now, they are actions you can take into any MRR business, really. They're all areas that you're able to look at regardless of the service that you are providing. So the first point I kind of want to make is that you can't impact things that you can't measure. You have to track this in your business. You really have to make sure you're tracking even on the most basic level. So this can be automated. Quite often when you're first starting out, looking at churn in an MRR business is going to be manual work. And that's okay until you come up with a system that's automated and makes sense for your business. So at the very least, you want to make sure you are tracking new customers each month and those customers that are leaving you each month at the very basic. That's going to give you that churn rate that we were looking at right at the beginning of the presentation there. So customers in and customers out. Use that division and make sure you have that data to be able to use that equation. This can be tracked in a number of ways. If you are tracking manually, you could probably use spreadsheets. That's something I've done in the past. I've just used spreadsheets to be able to log new customers coming in and then logging those cancellations that have been going out. You've then got some solid data to use to get your basic churn rate. You can get a little bit complicated with this and start adding in downgrades. You can start adding in paused accounts if your subscriptions allow for pausing. But on a basic level, make sure you are tracking new customers and customers going out. If you want to start to automate some of this stuff, you can use systems like Baremetrics is a system that we've used to track churn and much more. It can also track MRR, but Baremetrics connects directly with Stripe. So if you're using Stripe in your subscription model, Baremetrics just helps you put all of this information in a logical way and automate it. So it can track your MRR, it can track cancellations through Stripe, it can track new customers coming in through Stripe, and it kind of gives you those percentages automatically. If you're not using Stripe, then Baremetrics might not make sense for you, but something else on a similar scale that can help you automate this would be really good. So just make sure that you are tracking this data so that we can move on and start to look at different areas of the business that can help you reduce your churn. Once you've tackled that challenge, we can start to look at the value aspect of your business and your service. Just because you are getting a nice amount of recurring revenue from your customers each month doesn't mean that your MRR subscription model can be kind of a set and forget service. So you don't just want to provide a service and set and forget that on a rolling subscription basis. So what you're going to want to look at really is where am I providing value for my clients? Are my clients really seeing a solid amount of value for the work that I'm doing? If your clients don't see the value that they're getting, even though you're working your butt off managing their sites, you're working to provide plugin support, you're working your butt off to provide dev support on a monthly subscription basis. If your clients aren't seeing value weekly or monthly, you've got a really high risk of churn there. So this is a good area to be able to review in your business. Review where your clients are really seeing that value. You can deliver the service, but are they really seeing that value? As an example, WP Buffs is a care plan subscription business. So a lot of our work kind of happens in the background for our customers. So we need to make sure that we're showing people the value that we're providing, and we do that through automated reports. And so a lot of our work is done on a weekly basis. We update plugins, we run speed optimizations, security optimizations, all of that good stuff. Make sure the website is online all the time, and if there's any downtime, we tackle it. So all of these points are then put into a report, a nice branded, easy to read report for our customers to see every Monday. And they can then look back at the last 7 days and say, oh yeah, WPF has done a great job at delivering value and really helping me to keep my website on track. So think about how you can add more value. If you are already delivering maybe a report or something similar, what more can you do? The more value you can really show your clients, the better. The more data you put into this aspect, the better. For a plugin support company, perhaps you're able to find a way to maybe automate the data that shows your customers, the amount of support tickets you've solved for each customer. Is that data you can then use to add into your report? Is that data you can use to show them more value? I'm sure there are loads of different other avenues you can look at in terms of showing customers the value that they are getting. And this is just a really good starting point. It just gives clients a really tangible thing to see the value that they're getting. So once you've looked at value, another area you could review would be how your company handles failed payments. Failed payments is a really big area of churn for a lot of companies. If you don't have a process in place to catch failed payments and a process to reactivate them, these customers can fall through the cracks and they can increase your churn, even though the customer may not have intentionally left. Let's say their credit card failed or their bank blocked their payment. They get automated messages from you and they may ignore them. I've done it myself. How many times have I received an automated email from a company on a subscription where my payment might have failed because the card expired, or the bank blocked my payment, or they tried to use a card that had no money on it, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Goes on the back burner. Too busy. The subscription is cancelled, and it's forgotten about. The company relied on kind of just automated messages, but the subscription was cancelled because that client just didn't really do anything about it. So what I'm trying to say is we need to review how we handle failed payments, maybe use a mixture of automation. We use Baremetrics recover feature, and this helps us to send out automations. There's tons of systems out there you can use, not just Baremetrics, there's loads. And also a mixture of manual reach out as well. So you can really kind of add in that custom feel when you're reaching out to clients. And we find that having a customer success team reach out personally to customers when their card kind of declined really helps with not only getting their accounts back on track quickly, but also kind of helps with account growth as well. It can really open up the door to talk, to engage with clients a lot more just by reaching out because of a failed payment. Yeah, you'd be surprised about how many conversations kind of go along the track of, oh, actually, I have a friend who I wanted to refer to. How can I do that? Or, oh yeah, thanks for reaching out. I wanted to join your affiliate program actually, or, oh yeah, thanks for reaching out. I have another website I want you to manage, so I'm really glad that you reached out. Automation can't always grab that personal feel. So for us at WP Buffs, this has been huge. Adding in manual touch points has been really great to be able to get accounts back on track. Another quick tip I'm going to leave you with on failed payments is if you are using Stripe, Slack has a great integration that you can use between Stripe and Slack, and that will really help you, basically pushes failed notifications into Slack. So you can just have one dedicated channel for that, and it just helps you kind of keep track of things. This is actually one we use ourselves as well. So this is a really good one. Make sure you keep track of failed payments. The next area I would recommend reviewing would be your pricing. It might sound surprising, but low price points are likely to lead to higher churn rates down the line when compared to your higher priced competitors, let's say. We've gone through our own sort of pricing changes over the years at WP Buffs to try and get a good value point. So when I'm referencing pricing, what I mean is that lower paying customers tend to be very budget conscious, and budget conscious clients are likely to leave if they don't see the value of your service. So just also going back to that value point, if you have kind of a lower price point and you're not really showing clients the value, you have like a double whammy of churn there. So just these two alone, your pricing and your value, are going to play a really big part in your churn. So let's have a look at pricing. Are you charging too low? I've done it myself when I was actually freelancing within the WordPress space. I quoted a new client project. I drove to the client before they'd even signed a contract. I drove to them to have a meeting, which lasted a few hours. Even when they did sign the contract for a very, very, very low price point, I was spending more and more time on edits and changes, and I did all of this just because I wanted the client, And I think a lot of people have done this in the WordPress space. We've undercharged, and then we're not able to deliver that value, because if you are charging fairly for the value you're delivering, you're able to put more resources back into your company. You're able to deliver higher level service to clients to make your clients happier. I really want you to drop me a fire emoji in the comments if this sort of topic resonates with you, because I'm pretty sure that like everybody here can probably relate to some sort of pricing challenges in their company. Just drop me a fire emoji if this resonates with you. If you've charged too low in the past and you've looked back and gone, oh, I really should have charged a higher amount. But when I talk about pricing, it might not be that you actually need to fully raise your pricing. It might be that you actually just need to add an additional tier into your pricing structure. So if you do work on like a tier structure, maybe you can add an additional one where you can keep working with the clients that have a lower budget, but you remove some of the features or the value so that you're able to provide the value for the budget. And maybe you can then move those up into a medium tier where clients are willing to pay for that price and you're able to deliver the value. And that can kind of move up again. Take some value, move it up, and charge the correct pricing. This all just comes down to, the reason I'm telling you this really is because it all comes down to expectations. People with a lower budget tend to have maybe higher expectations. And so that just doesn't go hand in hand. It doesn't work for you to be a sustainable business, to be charging low prices and to deliver a ton of value and meet that expectations for those clients. So two things. Maybe you need to look at your pricing in general. Maybe you need to up that pricing and go through a transition period, or maybe you can reshuffle your tiers and your level, and maybe take some value out of the lower paying clients, and maybe just shuffle some of your plan features. This kind of leads me on to how to set expectations. From what I've learned in my role at WP Buffs, expectations plays a really, really big part in churn. It's quite simple. If you're not able to meet the expectations of your clients, then you have a big problem for churn potentially. Many customers are probably leaving your service simply because they had mismatched expectations, but this isn't always an area that is discovered up front. It's not something that a lot of companies possibly work to proactively prevent. So, what I'm trying to say here, I guess, is that set the expectations for your clients up front. Make sure that all aspects of your sales funnel, your website, your copy, your email sequences, they all set expectations really, really crystal clearly so that by the time a client joins you, they are really set on their expectations and they know that you're able to deliver that expectation. So yeah, really you need to review everything from your website. The copy on your website, does it set expectations properly when people are kind of checking out your service, or do you have completely unrealistic expectations because you want to attract clients because you need clients, or is it set really clearly? This is our time frame for turnarounds. This is what to expect for this price. Is it very clearly laid out in terms of what you can actually realistically deliver? So by the time your clients come to you, they're very happy that their expectations are being met. But yeah, review your website, review email sequences, review onboarding for when customers do join you. Are you reiterating what to expect next, and what to expect in the long run? This is all going to be it's really going to affect your churn. So really look at the expectations that you're setting with your clients through all of these different points. Finally, this one you're probably thinking is a bit of a strange one, but what does your cancellation process look like in your company? Whilst working in this area and kind of reviewing this as a strategy, it's going to pay off hugely if you keep in mind that the last impression you give your client should really be a positive one. This means that even when a client does leave your service, they should have a really positive experience and be left thinking, oh, that company, they handled that cancellation really well. I've left happy. And actually, even though I've cancelled my service, my care plan, or my support subscription, I'm going to refer them to somebody else because they'd still be a really good fit for them. Thinking like this is going to pay off a lot. I've seen tons of feedback at WP Buffs from people who have cancelled a care plan for many reasons. Perhaps their business went out. Their business went out of business. They shut down, and so their website shut down. They just had a pleasant experience cancelling their subscription, and they still want to refer us to friends. And they still want to give us a great public review, and that's going to do good things for your business. And quite frankly, it is just good business. Whilst requesting a cancellation shouldn't be impossible for your clients, it should also not be the focus of their kind of my account section. So let's say your customers are able to log into their account. Your cancellation button shouldn't be bright red in the center saying cancel. You can cancel here if you like, but it also shouldn't be impossible. So a way around this, the aim basically of reviewing your cancellation process is to kind of see how can I engage this customer before they leave me? Can we have a conversation about this? Can I have some feedback? Can I improve anything? Can we get on a call to kind of figure things out? And it's okay. Some customers are going to leave you. And this is where that zero churn is kind of impossible. A business goes out of business. They're no longer your client. And so you are going to have some of that level of churn because of this. But yeah, perhaps maybe a feedback form makes sense for your business. Is there something that we could have done differently? Asking that question just gives you that little bit of feedback, that snippet of insight to work with. And then perhaps you can have somebody reach out with follow-up questions from your customer success team or within the business. Your customer gets a confirmation that the cancellation request was received. You get some feedback, and then this can kind of either reduce that cancellation from happening at all, or it can at the very least give you some feedback on why they're cancelling. So that sort of is a more proactive way of dealing with cancellations rather than just letting people cancel outright and having no feedback. This can really help you work towards reducing those cancellations and kind of working within your business to kind of improve things. So we've covered quite a lot of ground there. As an overview, you want to be able to track your churn before you move on to the next 4 points. You want to be able to demonstrate the value that you are delivering to clients. This is going to really reduce your churn rate quite significantly if your client can look at the value that your company has given them when they're reviewing their expenses, especially. Service-based businesses are the first people to be cut usually when a company is kind of reviewing their expenses. And so when they do that, they see the value. Maybe it's that report or the data, the amount of tickets you sold for them. And they're going to say, yeah, I can see the value. I need this company. Have you eliminated your failed payments? Have you got a good solid process in place to be able to recapture these people and re-engage them and restart their subscriptions? Have you reconsidered and reviewed your pricing? Um, and have you made that last interaction a positive one? So the point of cancellation. Um, and if you run through each of these and you kind of put these strategies over the next couple of months into areas of the business that you want to review, you're probably going to see a good reduction of your churn. And so let me know if these work for you. That covers all of the kind of strategies I kind of wanted to share with you. So thank you for listening. I hope that this has been super valuable for you. And we'll move over to Q&A and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. For those of you who are watching live, Dean is here with me. Let me bring him on screen so you can see him too. There, Dean, how are you doing?
Hello, good. Hey, hey.
Good. Welcome. So, for those of you watching live, right now is your chance to ask Dean some questions. I know that you were paying attention. I could see you engaging in the chat and responding with all of those fire emoji. That was awesome. Ask your questions now. We have just about 10 minutes to get those answered. And if we can't answer them, all of them here on camera, we'll keep asking them. We'll collect those and we'll try to answer them off camera. Dean, like I said, that was a fantastic presentation and a really good lead-in to why we should be paying attention to churn without trying to eliminate it completely. You know that. You were there. You gave it. Our first question for today is from Danielle, and it goes, it's about failed payments. How much time would you give the customer? And what do you do if they ask for extra time to pay the bill?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is going to probably, in my opinion, come down to how you run your business a little bit. Because I say that because it has so many varying answers. But kind of on a general term, I would say, first of all, to solve this problem, use an automation system. So that will kind of help you gauge the time to kind of give your customer to repay or to get their subscription restarted. So if you use an automation system, it will kind of give you those sorts of steps as you set this up. So you might want to set, well, you're definitely going to want to set the first email when the payment fails, so the first day. And then from there, you might want to follow up on day 3. You might then want to send another email a week later. You don't want to bombard your customer because they may just be super busy and they'll probably, really value your service. But you also don't want to be providing your service for free. And so you've got to get a nice balance there of, okay, this customer is probably going to catch up. But also, do I need to pause the subscription in the meantime and let the customer know through those email sequences? So generally, I would say, yeah, definitely send out that first email or that first contact, whether you do that by phone or by email. Well, if you've got them on the phone, then that's perfect. You've solved your problem, probably. But yeah, definitely via email, you want to let them know that the subscription might be paused in, say, 24 hours or 48 hours. Also, these automations can let you know when customers have opened the emails. That's something that I found really helpful. So if your customers are opening these emails, but they're not replying, then there's another problem we need to solve. Why aren't they kind of re-engaging? How can you re-engage these customers? And so, yeah, I think the answer is really going to depend on how you handle your failed payments, whether that's manual or automated, and then how quickly you can get things back on track.
Amazing. All right. Next question, also from Danielle. How do you know when you have a churn problem instead of, any tips on setting expectations? Would you use a demo video for your customers?
Oh yeah, for sure. So video is a really, really good way to onboard customers. This is actually something that we are implementing at the moment. So we're kind of going to experiment with video at WP Buffs. Not something we do right now for our onboarding sequences. So us, like a lot of people, we handle onboarding via email. And so again, that's kind of a sequence of automations where we try to set those expectations once a customer has been onboarded, which is a different set of expectations kind of compared to when you are kind of lead generating. And so when you're kind of setting expectations once you have a customer, it's more about how to work maybe with you in support. It's more about, okay, what do we do now? And so that's the kind of information you want to get across. And video is an awesome way to do that. So I would definitely recommend, recommend video. One of the ways you can do that is through Loom or Vidyard. They're just kind of Chrome extensions. And we use those as well at WP Buffs in support. And so sometimes our engineers will send quick Loom videos of screen recordings and castings. And just, it really helps to kind of put a personal touch as well into that communication, which again is going to really help with your churn and also re-engage failed payment customers as well, because the more you can communicate with customers on a personal level, regardless of how big your business is, I think, the better. And so, yeah, video 100% is the way forward, for sure.
Perfect. Nice. Well, next up, Nick asks, how do you know when you have a churn problem instead of just regular churn? So emphasis there on when is it a problem instead of just usual stuff.
Yeah, for sure. There's a few signs that should tell you that you really do have to put in some strategy work. It's okay sometimes to float along if you're kind of in the generally accepted churn range of kind of 4 to 7% maybe. But once you kind of get into double digits, that's when you want to start kind of really kind of zoning in on different areas of the business to figure out where your problems are. If you're going into 10% or above, then there is definitely a lot of work that you can do to reduce that to the more kind of generally accepted level. But other things you can do, well, you might recognize that you are seeing more downgrades than you are seeing upgrades, or your downgrades are quite obviously overtaking your new customers or your cancellations. And so that's another sign that you might want to look at areas to improve. There's lots of different pockets of strategies you can look at. I've just covered literally like not even a handful in this presentation. And so there are a lot of signs that you can see when you're looking at, do I have a serious problem with churn? But yeah, definitely one of the main ones is going to be, are you in the double digits? And that's going to be your trigger.
Awesome. Well, good. I mean, not awesome, right? You don't want your churn that high up there, but that's an awesome, very concise, very clear answer. Our next question I grabbed, how do you work with customers when your company dropped the ball or made a mistake? And what steps do you take to try and rebuild that relationship?
Yes, actually, I love this question. I think this comes down to transparency. I don't think you can have enough honesty and transparency when you are in customer support or customer success. People value that. I personally value transparency and honesty over anything. If a company's made a mistake that I'm paying them to do a service for, and if they kind of admit what went wrong and kind of let me know how they're going to fix things, I am totally okay with that normally. I can smell the BS from a mile away if a company is trying to do that, and it's just not a good practice, you know. So honestly, yeah, honesty and transparency is going to be super high there on the list. In terms of how you work with them, yeah, I think, yeah, what I said really, just keep it honest and transparent. I think if you are able to set up Zoom calls, if that's something you have within your company, then you can get more personal and actually explain what went wrong and what you're doing to fix the problem. Then again, video is going to win over email. But if you are strictly email, then it's just about owning the problem that happened and owning the kind of solution and the way forwards. But definitely keeping communication on what, you know, how we can move forwards rather than what went wrong is going to be your key there.
That's very important advice, and I want to underscore that just in case people miss how profound that bit was. Of if you can connect with them over video, that is going to be far superior than connecting only over email. And there's a lot of psychology around why this is. Most of communication is nonverbal, and so when they can see you, they can interpret a lot more, and for sure when they can hear you, right? Empathy is completely lost in the written word. Sometimes you might be trying to be sincere, and people are interpreting that as sarcastic. So anytime that you can put an apology in your own voice and set the record straight, the better. Also, video is really good for high bandwidth communication. And I don't mean like the amount of data that's coming through the stream, but the amount of communication that you can cover in a short amount of time. To write an email that has 5 minutes of dialogue, we speak at around 180 words per minute at a casual pace. So for 5 minutes, you're sending them like 1,000-word essay. That's a really long email that could otherwise just be, I'm so sorry for what happened to you, so on and so forth. Here's how we fixed it. Comes across as a smaller expectation of their time in a certain sense, and is much more empathetic to what they're doing.
Yeah,
So
100. Just going back as well to very quickly say that if you can't get your customers onto a Zoom call or a video call, then going back to Loom or Vidyard is also super personal. So that will also work.
yeah, exactly right. I'm glad you said that. I meant to mention that as well. It does not have to be a real-time video call with them. You could just send what you were going to put in an email into a video and say, so sorry, here's an explanation, and then a link to the video. Same deal. It's going to come across as, wow, this person really cares for a lot of reasons. So nice. I like that. We are running out of time, and conveniently, I think we have also made it through all of the questions that have been asked by the audience so far. So before we part, where can people find you online if they want to see and hear more about what you're doing, or maybe ask questions elsewhere?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitter is at Burton Dean, and I can be found at WP Buffs. So that's where I am.
Perfect. Nice and easy. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dean. Have an amazing rest of your day, my friend.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.